Hi, my name is Guy, and we are talking on Off My Bridge about fixing Star Trek Generations, the 7th film in the franchise. Fixing it. Why do we need to fix it? Because it's broken, man. It's broken. It didn't do what it was supposed to do. It wasn't cool. It was meh. At least, in my opinion, it was meh. It could have been so much better. And yes, hindsight is 2020. At the same time, I feel like it gives us as DMs, as GMs, as narrators, as storytellers, as creators, as whatever you title yourself, it does give us some very interesting insight into how certain tweaks here and there to the narrative choices influence the entire thing, and how it is important for you from time to time, to take some risks, to take some chances, but also to come back and look at what are the fundamental rules and laws and lore, L-O-R-E, that has been established and that you have established, and to stick within that space. And you're going to see why in a little bit. Now, we're not going to fix the entire movie in a single session. That would be insane. There's not that much time for us to do that. We're going to do this over the next couple of months. Maybe an episode once every 2 months or so. Let me know whether you like this idea by tapping that like button, of course, and leaving your comments down below. That would be really useful. So where do we start with Star Trek Generations? Maybe let me just outline why it is that I didn't like the film. I started watching it. I was in the cinema. I was super excited. This was Kirk and Picard. It was the crossover. It was like, this is amazing. This is going to be wonderful. What's going to happen? Are we going to be bouncing between timelines like they did in Next Generation, only it's centuries apart? Are we going to see some kind of interdimensional thing happening? Are we going to see the Next Generation crew going back in time? How does this all fit? Well, this is exciting stuff. This is really, really exciting stuff. Instead, we got some bizarre random events happening, which saw Captain Kirk face off against a really underwhelming enemy, where Kirk didn't get to do any Kirkishness stuff. Picard was reduced to a barbarian, and the Next Gen crew were, well, just bad. They just failed and crashed and destroyed the Enterprise D. The biggest problem that I had was the opening sequence, step 1 of our journey, and it's only part 1 of step 1. Where Kirk is struck and sucked into the Nexus. Okay. What was the problem with that? Well, the biggest challenge that I had with the launch of the Enterprise B, which was made so grand with that opening bottle of champagne, it was just gorgeous, and the return of Chekhov, Scotty, and Kirk, was the fact that the captain of the Enterprise B wasn't a captain. Not by any stretch of the imagination. Even the actor, when he was hired to play John Harriman, he went, I'm not a starship captain. I don't look like a starship captain. And the reason why, and whether this is true or not, I don't know, but this is what the actor said in an interview once. Rick Berman, who was producing Next Generations, had told him that Captain Harriman was the son of a very influential member of Starfleet or of the Federation, and that they had basically bought Harriman's commission as captain of the Enterprise B, and that Harriman was literally just gunning for a political position within the Federation and wasn't interested in being a starship captain at all, and that's why he was so incompetent. I have an issue with this, and this is the lesson that we should be taking from the opening of Star Trek Generations. The Federation, even in Kirk's time, and this had been established, was above and beyond position and bribery and that kind of level of corruption. I cannot see an admiral forcing this Harriman onto the Enterprise B. The Enterprise is the flagship of the fleet. Always has been, always would be. So how on earth could an admiral go, no, I want my son to be the captain? Your son has never achieved the rank of captain through anything other than some minor achievements here or there. They're not the most qualified. And if that was the entire reason how Harriman became the captain, that could have been the film, although a very different one. So my first step in fixing Star Trek Generations is to replace Harriman with someone better. When you think about captains of the Enterprise, Pike, Kirk, Spock, Garrett, Picard, absolutely none of them came from mediocrity. None of them came from spinelessness, from indecision. They were decisive individuals. And I think that if we make our captain of the Enterprise B someone who is actually in command of the situation, it makes Kirk's entire movie journey throughout Generations that much stronger. And here's why. When we look at Harriman as a character, as a captain, if we want to make him different from the other captains, we would make him more of a humanitarian. And if you think about the time period, 2293, which is roughly when this is set, Harriman had the advantage of launching the Enterprise B when there were no significant enemies on the radar. The Klingons had signed a peace treaty at Khitomer. The Romulans were on the back foot, being very quiet and sneaky. So the Enterprise B was being launched in a peaceful time. That means the captain doesn't need to be someone who's got a huge amount of military experience, but someone who is going to push the frontier, to boldly go where others have not gone before, but to not expect combat per se. That's an exciting time. So we could have a more culturally focused captain, someone who is more interested in first contact than in combat. Now, we also don't want someone who's heavily diplomatic. Picard was going to fulfill that role later on. We don't want someone who is too gung-ho, that's Kirk. We don't want someone who wants lots of options from their crew either. That's very Pikean in approach. So we want someone who is decisive, but who is also eager to see what's out there. And that would change the entire dynamic on the bridge. Firstly, the moment that the distress call came through from the El-Orion ship, Harriman would have immediately responded, "We will respond, although we are greatly understaffed and we are unfortunately running on limited systems." What this does is it allows Harriman to then order Mr. Chekhov, "I know that the three of you are near retirement, but I need you to man some stations for me. Please would you handle the refugees coming off of the ship?" Instead of Chekhov telling Harriman what he's going to do, this allows Chekhov to go off and handle the members of the crew. "Mr. Scott, your engineering expertise would be greatly helpful considering we don't have a lot of our subsystems installed yet. The tractor emitters have not been aligned. There are none of this, there's none of that. Transporters are operating at 50% functionality. Mr. Kirk, I would greatly appreciate your tactical advice in this situation." Kirk can then say, "We've got to go and we've got to rescue them. I would take the ship in closer. We've got to take a risk." Harriman, if he agrees with that assessment, takes the ship in. The ship then gets caught in the Nexus, and then they have to escape. Now look at the dynamic. Instead of Harriman going, but we don't know what to do, Captain Kirk, I greatly appreciate all of that kind of stuff. If we now take that away, and you've got Harriman issuing these orders, when the ship is stuck in the Nexus and Scotty goes, "Well, I do have an idea, sir. We can do a inversion beam, etc., 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 etc." Harriman then turns to Kirk and says, "Captain Kirk, or Admiral Kirk, you are the only one rated on these subsystems. I need you to go to the environmentals, or I need you to go to the deflector dish, and I need you to do this, please." Scotty can say it's too bloody dangerous, etc., 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 etc. Chekhov could volunteer to go and do it. Demora Sulu on the bridge could volunteer. Anyone could volunteer to do it. But if Kirk says, no, I'll do it. You stay at your stations. It's your enterprise. It makes it such a better decision. It's Kirk's decision to follow orders rather than to question orders, rather than to give them himself. And I do want to make this clear, folks. It is not the actor's fault for the way that Harriman was portrayed. The actor did a fine job of portraying the character as he was instructed to do, a blithering idiot. The actor, I think, is a great actor. I want to make that clear. It is the character as the character was created. So Kirk goes down. He sets everything up. This beautiful discharge happens. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Kirk disappears. Harriman ordered Kirk to his death. Kirk followed his duty. Kirk didn't leave his post. Kirk did what was necessary to save the ship. Tick box for Kirk. Compare that sacrifice to Spock's sacrifice in Wrath of Khan. They are suddenly comparable. It's a dangerous thing. Kirk chose to do it anyway. So the whole opening act changes very dramatically from random stupid to a decision that affected the future of Kirk and everybody on the Enterprise B. I think that's a much stronger opening. Now, when we look at it from a mechanical perspective, the Nexus and that wonderful experience that they were in, that was an extended task in action, folks. Now, last week we looked at how extended tasks work. If you're not familiar with it, go check out that video before you watch the rest of this video, because as an extended task, it would be this. Escape the Nexus. Progress of 12. It's only the opening act of the film. We don't want it to last for too long. Difficulty of 3. It's tough. Kirk, Scotty, Chekhov probably have 5 or 6 in their respective departments. So we don't want them to progress too slowly. But at the same time, with a progress of 12, they could theoretically finish it in 3 rolls. So difficulty of 3. And we're going to make it a resistance of 2. So we're reducing those scores down because perhaps Harriman needs to make some rolls, Sulu needs to make some rolls. They won't have such a high score as Chekhov, Scotty, or Kirk. So it's a tough challenge, but we're going to increase the pain of the situation by saying that every failure results in a breach of one of the ship's systems. It'll be a random roll as to which system, but it results in a breach, drawing inspiration from the film itself. So the Excelsior being scale 5 means that that is 5 breaches, and then the 6th one, but that's the progression track, and it will slowly go down until it gets to 0, and at 0, huzzah, they break free from the Nexus, but that final breach takes out Kirk. So that is how I would use Star Trek Adventures 2 to create the opening sequence of Star Trek Generations and how I would fix Star Trek Generations. Do you agree with me? I would love to know. Maybe you loved Star Trek Generations. Put your comments down below on the video. I'd love to read them, engage with them, and just see what's going on in your heads. And if you want to see more of this, if we then take it to the next episode, or the next scene, which is that sailing ship scene, let me know as well, and I will do that in upcoming episodes later on in another month or so. Apologies for this episode being so bitty, but my neighbors, for whatever reason, are trying to fix their engine, and their progress bar is not moving forward. Anyway, I wish you and yours live long and happy gaming.